What is up, guys? Disney Freak 39 here, and something that I like to do every single year is I like to reflect on the previous year and go over my top 10 movies of the year and talk about my most anticipated movies of the current year. And I know I'm very late this year, but that's just because I've had a very busy schedule, but I just got out of AMC to see the final movie I was interested in of 2024, and here's my top 10 movies of the year and my most anticipated for 2025. Coming in my number 10 spot is John Krasinski's If. Now, If is a simple premise: what happens to your imaginary friends as you grow up? And it takes that simple message, and John Krasinski just makes you feel so much. It takes the childhood wonder that you once had, and it gives you that no matter what age you are. I was sitting in the theater, and I was tearing up. Cannot suggest this one enough. Coming in at number 9 is Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. Now, I am a huge fan of the MonsterVerse movies. They're just fun movies watching two giant CGI monsters just battle it out. But this is, I think, the best out of all of the MonsterVerse movies. Previously, I thought Skull Island was the best, but this one, it just takes the elements that did not work with the previous ones, like with the humans and everything, and they cut it down very low, and they gave us what we wanted. Two monsters just battling it out, and I just was in complete shock and awe at how well they executed that in this one, and I'm so excited for the next one. In our number 8 spot is Descendants: The Rise of Red. Now, I am a huge Disney fan, if you could not tell, and going into this movie, I was not looking forward to watching it because I am such a fan of the original, and not having that original cast, it left a bad taste in my mouth. But you know what? I thought they executed this movie almost perfectly, with almost a perfect movie. They just kind of messed up at the end, but besides that, they were able to do a soft reboot on this franchise, and I am so excited to see what comes next in this story. Coming up next is Wicked. I'm not the target audience. I may seem like a theater kid, but honestly, I don't know anything about musical theater. But when I tell you I sat down in that theater at an early screening, and I was just in shock and awe at how wonderful this story is. There was one sequence in the movie, and it was at this sequence that something clicked in my head, and I was like, now I understand why there are so many people that are obsessed with this show. In our number 6 spot is the movie that was my most anticipated movie of last year, Deadpool and Wolverine. I am a massive Marvel fan, and I was so extremely excited for Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, I will be honest, Deadpool and Wolverine didn't really hit the same compared to the first two Deadpools, but I think what they did was they took what worked with those first two movies and got to put a little spin on it for the MCU, and I thought the humor was extremely well done. The action was amazing. I mean, how many times have I rewatched that Bye 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 sequence? Too many to count. And I am very excited to see what Ryan does next with Deadpool, because honestly, I think the box office just proved that we all want more Deadpool in our lives. Now, from Ryan Reynolds to his wife Blake Lively, my number 5 spot goes to It Ends With Us. Now, I am unfamiliar with this book series. It is supposedly a very popular book by Colleen Hoover, and I just went in blind. I didn't even watch a trailer, but they were able to really win me over with this story. Now, I went in thinking it was going to be a romance movie, and it is, but it's so much more than that. It's kind of a hard subject to discuss, but go into this movie, definitely give it a shot. It really won me over, and if there wasn't a lot of drama outside of the film, I was really looking forward to a sequel, but unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be getting it. In our number 4 spot is Lisa Frankenstein, which is honestly the biggest surprise of 2024. I went into this movie not knowing much, and I was sitting in my seat just laughing out loud so much during that entire movie. I don't think a movie made me laugh as hard in 2024 as Lisa Frankenstein. You got Katherine Newton and Cole Sprouse. They're killing it in the game, and if you have not seen this movie, it is a underrated gem that I feel like will be talked about in years down the line as like a cult classic. Now, before I get to my top 3 movies of the year, I do want to give an honorable mention that did not make the top 10, but deserves to be talked about, and that is The Fall Guy. Now, The Fall Guy is a movie that did terrible at the box office, which I don't know why, because you got Ryan Gosling, who just came off of his huge success with Barbie the year prior, and I don't know, I guess no one went to see it, but this movie is about Ryan Gosling, who's a stuntman, and he's to go on a real-life stunt adventure, and it's such a good watch. Go and check it out. Coming in my number 3 spot is Transformers 1. Now, I am not a Transformers fan at all. I actually watched my very first Transformers movie 2 years ago with Rise of the Beast, and then I watched Bumblebee, so I really don't know much about this franchise, but I went into Transformers 1 not expecting much. I heard it was a good movie, so I was like, I'll give it a watch. When I tell you, I want a sequel to this movie. This movie was so well done, seeing the story of Optimus Prime and Megatron and seeing them slowly break apart throughout the movie. Like, they were best friends, and then what happens to these two friends when something goes wrong. When I tell you, man, I want a sequel so bad. Please, Paramount, do me a favor, make a sequel to Transformers 1, and please give this a watch, even if you're not a Transformers fan, because it won me over. In my number 2 spot is actually, based off the shirt that I'm wearing, Inside Out 2, which I thought was going to be my favorite movie of the year. This movie, I actually went in with pretty low expectations because I wasn't the biggest Inside Out fan when I was younger. And then I rewatched the first Inside Out to prepare for Inside Out 2, and I was like, wow, this just flew over my head when I was a kid. And I feel like as I grew up, I got to really understand the message of Inside Out a lot more. And I then went into the sequel, and the sequel blew me away. I don't think there has been a message in a movie in my entire life that I've resonated with more, and just seeing like that final sequence of everyone who's just hugging the console, oh my god, that was one of the greatest moments I think I've ever seen in any movie, and I'm sure everyone saw it because it is now the highest grossing animated movie of all time. But if you have not seen it, please give it a watch. Anyone of any age, but especially you guys who are growing up, I feel like this movie is going to be perfect for you. And in my number 1 spot, my favorite movie of 2024, the movie that I actually got out of the theater watching at the intro of this video, The Wild Robot. Now, Chris Sanders, who is the director of Lilo & Stitch, made this movie, and I was really excited to check it out, and then life just happened, and I didn't get to watch it, but I am so happy I got a chance to watch this movie, because when I sat in the theater last week and I was watching that movie, I just knew I was watching a masterpiece. I don't want to give a lot away because I went into this movie almost completely blind. I didn't really know the story. It was based off of a book, but I didn't read that book. But just watching this robot and it helping out this community of animals, it's gonna put a lot of tears in a lot of people's eyes, and I'm sure parents who watch this movie are gonna cry way more than I did. But definitely not only the best movie of 2024, I think it's gonna go down as one of the greatest movies ever made. And that was my top 10 movies of 2024. Let me know what your favorite movie that you saw last year was. And now let's go and hop into my most anticipated movies of 2025. So my number 10 spot is a movie that honestly wouldn't really appeal to me, and that is Dogman. I read Captain Underpants growing up. That movie that came out in 2017, it was alright. And I actually never read any of the Dogman books, but the trailer with Daft Punk, it won me over, and I'm really excited to check this one out. In my number 9 spot is the Thunderbolts. Now, I was like, why is Marvel making their own version of the Suicide Squad? There have been trailers that have released. Definitely is slowly getting me more intrigued with what's happening. They're also bringing in Sentry or the Void, which I heard is Marvel's version of Superman, but he's more than just Superman, so I'm really intrigued to see how they're gonna balance out such a powerful character with a group of, let's just face it, nobodies. In our next spot is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Now in 2023, I saw my very first Mission Impossible movie with Dead Reckoning Part 1. Now, of course, they now changed it to just Dead Reckoning instead of Part 1, just because I guess they don't want to have this new one coming out this year associated with that movie and being like, oh, I gotta watch the first one before I watch the new one. So they changed the name around, but the new one is called The Final Reckoning, and I thought Tom Cruise did a fantastic job with the action. I mean, I'm sure he's done a fantastic job in the previous Mission Impossible movies, but I gotta be honest, I've never seen any of them besides the first one and the last one that came out, so I'll definitely have to rewatch a lot of them to prepare prepare for the final reckoning. And our number 7 spot is Ballerina. Now this is a John Wick spinoff that John Wick is actually appearing in, and if you've seen John Wick 4, you're like, what do you mean, how is he appearing in this movie? If you've seen the 4th one, you kind of know. Well, this movie takes place in between John Wick 3 and 4, so that's why Ana de Armas is going to be playing a ballerina. I don't care, I just want to see some great action, and they always deliver it, and that's why I feel like with each John Wick, it gets better and better, because they do great things with the action, and this movie went through a lot of reshoots, but not in a bad way. They wanted to add more action, so I am so excited to see what they do with this one. And our number 6 spot is Wicked for Good, aka Wicked Part 2. Now, I went over how the first Wicked kind of blew me away, and I really understood why people stand by this franchise, and I kind of spoiled myself about what happens in Part 2, but not everything. But I'm so excited to see how the story unfolds, because I do know a few details, but I'm sure there's a lot that I kind of looked past, so I'm excited to see what happens in Part 2. In my number 5 spot is the live-action Lilo and Stitch. Now, the first Lilo and Stitch, the animated movie from 2002, it's a Disney classic, and I feel like a lot of people say Stitch is their favorite character, and they did a surprisingly well job adapting Stitch into live action. Like, he looks really good. And the marketing for this movie, it's just starting to kick off, but they're doing things right, and they're plopping Stitch into all of these fun different areas. Like at the Super Bowl, they had him running on the field from Moana 2. You saw him like eating a cockamora or something. And if you don't know, with the first Lilo and Stitch, they advertised the movie by putting Stitch in all of these other Disney movies. So I really have a lot of expectations for this live action, because the marketing has been pretty good, and I'm sure this live action is going to be one of the good ones, but who knows? Who knows? This could be another Lion King. Ooh. In my number 4 spot is Superman. Now, this is the brand new start of a cinematic universe. James Gunn is starting the ground up. He's bringing in Superman and starting his own DC cinematic universe, and I'm really intrigued to see what this universe has to offer, because the previous DC universe, well, we know how that ended. So I'm excited to see what happens. They got Crypto in the movie. They got a lot of superheroes, but maybe it's gonna work, maybe it won't. We'll have to wait and find out. Now, before we get into my top 3, I do want to give some honorable mentions for some movies that didn't make my top 10, but I'm really intrigued with, and the first one is going to be Zootopia 2. Now, I think the first Zootopia is extremely overrated. I think it's an alright Disney movie, but it made $1 billion, so of course they're going to be making a sequel, so we'll have to see how that one turns out. And the other movie that I'm bringing in is Novocaine, which was a movie that was not on my radar until a few weeks ago when they dropped the first teaser, and this is Jack Quaid, who of course Jack Quaid is fantastic in The Boys, and he plays this guy who can't feel pain, and it's an action movie, and I love my action movies, so we'll see how that one turns out. And in my number 3 spot is Captain America Brave New World, which I have actually seen already, but I'm gonna keep this was my list before seeing the movie, and the first trailer for Captain America Brave New World was absolutely fantastic. It had that real political espionage feel to it, and it got me really pumped for the movie. Now, I did give my thoughts on the movie already. Real quick before going on to number 2, I will say the movie didn't really live up to that first teaser, but I still had a lot of expectations for the movie, and it may not have been fully fulfilled, but I can't change my list just because I already seen it, because I'm just filming it so late in the year. And in my number 2 spot is a movie that probably no one really even knew was coming, and that is Nobody 2. Now, the first Nobody movie dropped, I believe, in 2021, and it kind of dropped out of nowhere. It didn't really make too much at the box office, but this movie is made by 87 North. And if you don't know 87 North, it's one of my favorite production studios. A lot of the people that do the stunt choreography for the John Wick movies, they made their own production company. They've made movies like Silent Night, they made Love Hurts, which came out this year. And if you didn't see Nobody, it's basically Bob Odenkirk is playing a killer. His dad is Christopher Lloyd, and I am so excited for the sequel, and I didn't even think we were going to get one because the first one really didn't perform too well, but I'm so excited to see what they do with the second one because the first one has so many good action sequences. Please go and give it a watch if you have not already, which I'm sure a lot of you have not seen it. And that brings us to our number one spot, my most anticipated movie of 2025. It's the Fantastic Four. Now, the Fantastic Four is a group of characters that I've always enjoyed. Actually, my first interaction or experience with the Fantastic Four was with Lego Marvel Superheroes when I would play as some of the characters. And I liked the 2005 one. I thought the 2015 one was interesting, but I'm so excited to see how Kevin Feige brings in these iconic characters into the MCU. Now, it's going to be like a multiverse type of film or something because they're in the 1960s, but it's not our 1960s. We have Galactus in the movie. We got freaking Galactus in the movie. So I cannot wait to see how they pull off such a crazy combination of characters, and they hopefully will have Reed Richards and all of the rest of the characters become mainline characters in the MCU, and who knows, maybe Reed Richards is going to be leading the Avengers, and I'm really, really excited to see how they pull this movie off. And that was my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2025, my top 10 movies of 2024. Please give me your thoughts on everything that I talked about in today's video down in the comments. Drop a like if you have not already, and I am so sorry this video is dropping pretty far into 2025. I usually like getting this video out in January. A lot has happened, so I appreciate you guys still watching until the end and hearing my thoughts on the movies, even though I'm very late. Thank you guys so much for watching, and keep watching movies, and I'll see you guys next time.